Welcome to And Flow with Soul. My name is Dr. Mary Meduna-Gross, and today I have Julie Allison with us. Julie's company is Watch Her Grow. It is a boutique bookkeeping and financial service company for women entrepreneurs. Julie, I am so excited to have you here for this conversation today.
Mary, I am super excited to be here as well. This is like my highlight of the day, getting to talk to you. I feel like we share some of the same backgrounds. And how we connected, it's just kind of like been a perfect fit in getting to know you and the work that you're doing. So super excited to be here.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So let's start with Julie. Tell us a little bit about how Watch Her Grow came to be.
Yeah, so I have a long history working in a variety of large companies, various roles with financial background. So I was an accounting major in undergrad years ago. Worked in a lot of Fortune 500 companies, and it sort of honestly for me got to be a little bit of a drudgery. I think when I was looking at your website, I saw a term that you use that you said living by default. Yeah. So I felt like I got to the point where I was living by default. I was successful. I had saved a lot of companies a lot of money. So some of the things I would do inside companies is help them figure out ways to be more profitable, which oftentimes led to having to let people go, restructuring, moving products from one plant to another, potentially moving something overseas versus keeping things in the United States. And a lot of focus on profits and a lot of focus on targets. So publicly held companies are obviously really beholden to their investors. And every year there would be a target setting process. And every year you have to show growth. I mean, that's how the stock market works. They're looking for 5 to 7%. They're looking for you to cut costs. It's just continual. And actually we sort of, some of us laughed at some points. If you look at like strategic plans of major companies out like really long, like 10 years, like at some point, based on the mathematical theory, you get to the point where product costs nothing because you've gotten it like less expensive every year. Yeah. And so at some point you start to question, wait a minute, does this model really work? Yeah. And so in truthfulness, I had been through many restructurings over my career. If you're inside a major company, it feels like about every 2 to 3 years, there's a restructuring where people are let go or they change leadership and, redesign things. We move this task from point A to point B and things like that. And at the end of 2015, the company that I was working for was being acquired by another, and they were merging. And I decided at that time that was the perfect time for me to step aside and do something different. And again, it wasn't like some big monumental thing where like somebody came to me and they're like, this is what you're going to be doing. And this is perfect. It was really just more of I can't do this anymore. I couldn't physically, it was too much stress on my body. And I wasn't doing meaningful work. I didn't feel like I was really helping in any way my coworkers, our customers. It wasn't working. And so I took a little bit of time off, and I sort of, was kind of like, what am I going to do? I did a lot of different things that people do, got into more some creative endeavors. So just things that nourished myself. I did go through like yoga teacher training a few years ago, which I really loved. And that was a way of kind of reconnecting. But I just started, I said, okay, I'll just start my own business. And again, it's always, people are thinking about, when I start my own business, I got to lay out these things. The actual part of starting a business, as you know, is quite easy in that, you file some paperwork, you pick out a name, you check to see if someone owns the domain, you get a tax ID, and all of a sudden you're like, wow, I'm a company. This is super easy. But I wasn't really clear on what my purpose was and what I was going to do. So I spent several years doing what I would consider like consulting through my company. Had a lot of different clients, again, healthcare. I worked at hardware, just kind of like all over the board, more on project basis where I would come in and help them do something they needed to do. I love the part of working for yourself. That part is fantastic. And we can maybe talk a little bit more about that. But I still found that I was working for clients that were very much like the places that I had left, and a lot of the same structures and goals. And so it was really rather recently that I decided that I really wanted to focus on women-owned businesses. And I think you and I share some of the same like personal background at my age, and I know it may differ based on your generation. I'm coming out of the era of being born in the late 60s, early 70s, where things were different for women. They are still different for women. But having lived through that experience and what the expectations are of women and finding our voices, it's taken me personally a long time to find my voice and to be comfortable with who I am. And so I wanted to help other women in that regard. And I also wanted to help them from the standpoint of, I'm a single mom, at least, for the past many years, that a lot of people at the lower end of the financial spectrum in our country are single women. And you see that today with, COVID and a lot of those positions being let go. And a lot of those women are challenged to find daycare, to find meaningful work. And they're bright women, and we have so much to offer. And I really just wanted to be a part of that solution. And so I sat down and did a little creative art thing, trying to come up with what I wanted to do with, magazines and sticking things on poster board, trying to think about keywords that meant something to me. And the feminine meant something to me, which is how I got to her. Whether you're masculine or feminine, that is in both, people, that feminine part.
Right.
And then growing, I want to grow women as people and using our voices. And I also want to grow their businesses. So because the business is a way for them to get that independence and to use their voice and to, just have some agency over their lives in a way that perhaps maybe they didn't before.
Yeah.
So it's kind of probably too long of an answer.
No, it's an amazing answer. You covered so much territory. So I want to go back to the piece about when you knew it was time to leave corporate America. Mm-hmm. And what I heard you say is that you felt like you were being stress, right? It sounded like maybe burnout. I don't think you used that word, but would that word apply?
Yes.
Yeah. So a sense of burnout and a lack of meaning to the work, right? So that's okay. So that's when you said, I can do this on my own. But then I also heard you say, as you were kind of closing the story, is that coming from that generation of the late 60s, early 70s, struggling to find your voice. Tell me about that gap between I'm burning out. I know this corporate job's not for me anymore. I don't quite know my voice yet. And so how did you find that? You talked a little bit about the boards and finding the words, but how did you actually find your voice?
Yeah. I would love to be able to say that it was like a 1-year thing, or I took a class or something like that. It's actually something that I probably feel a little embarrassed about, that it has taken me so long to be able to articulate things that are important to me and to live a life that I feel good about. I think for a lot of women, it goes back to just how we are raised and, subliminal messages that we get from our parents on what girls are capable of, what they should aspire to. And it's not even so much just like what jobs, because a lot of it comes back to that. Sure. I think it's just how we carry ourselves and how we care for others and what we can ask for, having our needs met. So I think a lot of that goes back to my childhood and feeling like I could not make people be uncomfortable. That whole thing with, if you're a strong woman or you say what you think, people are uncomfortable. Yeah. You will get negative comments on social media. It requires a certain strength and ability to stand on your own. And in terms of how I did it, I think for me, it was honestly life experiences that I'm not sure that I would have asked for or signed up for. Some of it is I have 2 sons, so raising sons who are now adults and wanting to be intentional about that and more looking at from a standpoint of who they might marry and wanting to set an example of what I wanted those women to experience in their marriages. I got divorced probably like 10 or so years ago, which was a very challenging experience, mostly from the standpoint that it was a very drawn out legal thing. So I was required to stand up for myself in a way that I had never been required to before. So that was a personal thing. Yeah. And I think just as you get older in life, I got to this point where I'm like, when you hit like 40s and 50s, at least for me, you're sort of on the back end of life. And what do I want to be contributing? And just this awareness of, okay, I'm going to continue on the same path. And my life will end, and I will have never taken the chances, and I will have never risked being the person that I want to be and the things that I want to do because I'm afraid of it. Is what it ultimately came down to me. So just having to say, okay, it's going to be really uncomfortable. You're going to be afraid of these things. Even this, like doing a video, sharing yourself with others, it's all a very vulnerable place to be. But I just decided that I had to do it. And I think that little core of something exists inside everybody. Yeah. It's just whether we listen to it and allow ourselves the space to listen to it and not do it perfectly, right?
Yeah. I love that what you just added there at the end. You don't have to do it perfectly.
No, it's not going to be perfect. It's just
not ever.
Not, which is really hard. It's hard. And it's hard just for anyone as an adult to come out and do something new. Yeah. And I think you and I have talked about this before. I feel like as a woman that sometimes women are more critical of women than men are of women or men are of other men. And so to be a woman who's putting yourself out there and seeking something and being true to yourself, I do think it draws some attention from other women that is oftentimes, it's uncomfortable.
It's very uncomfortable, right? And especially if you add on that layer of having to please everyone, right? Another typical, I'm going to speak for myself, 70s kind of training as the female. I was expected to be the peacemaker and to not make anybody upset or to get anybody upset with me, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's I think it's probably the number one trait of so many women, right?
For sure.
It's ingrained. It really is. I'm trying to work on this process every day of trying to catch myself. Yeah. And sometimes it's 20 to 30 times a day still where I catch myself saying something or doing something that I'm trying to stop. It's just, it's on that cellular level, right?
Yeah.
Things get they soak in and they just stay there.
Right. I often, when I start working with a client, start with creating self-awareness. So beginning to listen to that voice in the head, not diminishing it or, wishing it wasn't there. I think there's a lot of value to what that voice tells us. I don't think we should agree with everything that voice tells us because that voice to me is the voice of our ego, and our ego is about protecting us. And so it's really driven by fear. And so if we listen to that voice, then we're going to get all of those fear messages. However, by listening to that voice, we do hear what we are afraid of, or we hear what's holding us back. When I hear myself, one of my things is I'm always in a rush. I'm always in a hurry. And I'm catching myself why do I have to be done with this right now? I just started it, right? Because as soon as I sit down with one thing, I feel like I should be on to the next thing already. And just listening to that inner chatter of, well, if you don't get this done, then this is going to happen. And just, as you said, listening to it over and over and over again, and then countering that with what is true now. Because maybe that was true for me at one point. I mean, I trust the ego. I trust that it has put rules in place for us that keep us safe, keep us comfortable. Yeah. And that's its job. And so I respect the job that it's doing, and it's a great way to learn about how I'm holding myself back.
Yeah, no, absolutely. One of the things that I've started to do, because my older son will notice to me or comment when I have left my body, and it's a thing from yoga, just, trying to come back to the moment and always be grounded, where you are and to really experience it as opposed to escaping and leaving, which is hard. So that's a fear thing too, right? When you find yourself wanting to escape from whatever is in front of you in that moment, to just really trying to take a step back, ground yourself, take a breath, be where you are. And then you can listen to it, I think, a little bit more clearly. Is this message, something I need to listen to right now?
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that 100%. So where you are now, then, where are you at now in your business? How do you manage any of those voices that might still be popping up? What are those voices that are popping up for you now?
Yeah, so we're still like in the what I consider like the growth phase. We're still growing. Everything still feels very new and fresh in terms of getting new clients. I'm loving working with women. That part has been really phenomenal. I'm still, though, an entrepreneur. I have like the equivalent of a half of a person right now who's helping me with some things. So I don't have like a staff of like 13 people. Yeah. We're working on growing, but for me, that is still a lot of, a burden on me in terms of meeting client expectations, in terms of the work that I'm doing, but then also growing and putting myself out there. So I write my own blog posts, which has been something I've always wanted to do because that's a creative side of me that feeds me. And yet it takes me like 20 hours to write, one post, right? Right. So it's like this, this constant of any entrepreneur of where do I put my attention to first, and trying not to get into the crazy of triage. Like you just said, like not everything has to be done right now. It's not so important. I would say I feel very confident in the financial things that I'm offering. I have a lot of experience and I feel very grounded in that and being able to help people. The piece that I still personally work on is the selling of myself and putting myself out there, which is why I forced myself to do some of these articles, putting myself on social media. I recorded a video for the first time a couple weeks ago. It was actually really intimidating. Yeah. So those kinds of things are things that I personally am still trying to work through. And for me as a woman, at least the feedback that I've always gotten is this, like trying to walk this fine line between putting yourself out there and not being the girl in big britches, or, she's too big for her britches, or that energy that, again, is my self-talk from whatever, that women are not supposed to be big. We're supposed to be small. We're supposed to be sweet. We're supposed to be, demure or whatever. Right. Right. So that's a challenge. If you're an entrepreneur, I heard somebody say this before, you have to be in selling. You have to be willing to convince people that what you do is worthwhile and that you're good at it. And you're not going to get customers or clients by sitting at home behind your whatever. You have to be able to do it. And it is a skill set. I will tell you, it is a skill set, right? Yeah. So that's my personal challenge, is still trying to be comfortable in that way. I put something out on social media. It was something that I'd written, and of course, you get a troll. So those types of things, and just being able to ignore, navigate, rise above, keep your energy, focus on what's important, focus on the people that are helping you, nurturing you, those things, right? It's just like just developing a muscle, right?
Yeah, exactly. That's a great analogy. As you were describing, again, your shift from corporate into your own voice, one of the things that popped into my head is something that I learned that helped put some structure. I love structure. I love systems, right? I like a framework. Then I want to be able to deviate from it, but I want to know what the general framework is. So this framework that I was introduced to, and right now off the top of my head, I'm not going to be able to quote who it was. I'll put that in the notes later. But there's stages of development and of stages of power. And in the first two stages, the first stage of power is power by association. So think about when you're in school, you're with the right group, you're with the right family, you're in the right community, those kinds of things. So you gain power through association. The second level of power then is through achievement. So now that I know the right people, now I'm going to achieve, right? And so all of this so far in these first two stages is very externally driven. We make a lot of compromises sometimes to fit into the group that we want to fit into. Because we want what they want, or we want what they have. And so we try to shape ourselves into who they are so that we can get what they get. And then through the achievement. And then what happens, I think a lot of us stop developing at that point. So I got the job, I got the car, I got the house, or whatever it is, I got it. And now what? I mean, a lot of my clients come to me, women who are, in their 60s, ready to retire, and they're like, what have I done? And it breaks my heart because they have followed the rules. I was taught to be a rule follower too. Again, I like to break them, but ultimately I'm a rule follower, and trying to meet everyone's expectations. So these first two stages are very externally driven. And sometimes even if we achieve what we thought we wanted, we can still feel unfulfilled. So the next stage of development then is, I think they call it reflection. And this is, if you're familiar with The Hobbit, the hero's journey, this is where you go into the dark cave of the soul kind of thing, where you discover all of these rules that we've been living by. How have I been holding myself back? And am I willing to let go of some of these rules in order to create new rules for myself? Or am I going to stay who I am? So it's really this whole opportunity to be that butterfly, right? I was a caterpillar. I've always been a caterpillar. I'm really good at being a caterpillar, but now I have this urge to become a butterfly. And I have all of everything that it takes to be a butterfly. I just don't know how to organize it. So that, I think, is the biggest challenge of being a human being is, will I answer the call to go into that dark cave of the soul? Or am I just going to stay comfortable, right? The ego says, stay comfortable, stay safe. This is good for you here. When we make that path through the cave of the soul and we come out at the other end of that hero's journey, now we have power through, I think it's through influence. And the last one is power through wisdom. So I love this outline because it really shows us that, in the beginning of our lives, we should be learning a lot from other people, putting ourselves in those I use right loosely, putting ourselves in those environments that give us the opportunity to figure out who we are, who we really want to be, and to practice the achievement, right? What can I do with this? Now that I've learned it, what can I do with it? But then ultimately, who am I going to be? Am I going to stand in my shoes? Am I going to use my voice, or am I going to use somebody else's voice forever? So I really love that. In the notes, again, I'll put the reference for that because I think it's a really powerful tool to realize, where am I on this spectrum? Right. And it's okay, because I think, again, that whole power through reflection piece is so uncomfortable. It's frightening. And if you don't have the whole hero's journey, we need a Gandalf. We need somebody to walk with us who can help us navigate these very unknown and treacherous path that we're on. So that's what I want to do for the clients that I work with, is to help them through that piece so that they can come out the other side grounded in who they are, in their power, and create the magic that leads to.
Yeah, I relate to that a lot. I just wrote an article actually on my blog about that, about following rules that went all the way back to my childhood. And it is sort of the same thing that you're talking about. And it is very uncomfortable. And for me, one of the things that when you were talking, that jogged my memory is how difficult it is for me coming out of corporate America to put my voice out there, surrounded by all of these others who I'm not making an assumption on whether they're stepping out and using their own voice or not. But from my perspective, that feels very much like everyone following the same and following the rules. And for me to step out of that from my peer set that I've worked with for 25 plus years and put myself out there publicly in that way. So that's probably the phase where I'm at. And it is rather daunting, and yet it's also very freeing. Yeah. And it's also, there are pieces where you do that and you get, I don't know, just little bits of something from people that you wouldn't think, you were connecting to in some sort of way. But yeah, it's hard. I call it standing in the center of a circle. So can you stand in the center of that circle with your peer set around you and say something that they are largely going to disagree with? Or something like that, right? It's challenging. It's challenging for anybody, right? And yet it's also how you find your power, because when you're able to do that, yeah, you're coming back to yourself. You're like, I can stand in the circle. I'm not going to fall over.
I love it. I think that framework is, again, it's just so powerful to know this is where I am in this process. Where have I been? Where am I going? And it is worth it on the other side of this.
Yeah. And to your point, having a coach or somebody along with you, because there's plenty of times when you fall over, or whether it's just something that doesn't go well, or you got certain feedback, or somebody's bumping up against you as you're trying to do that. Because a lot of people will not want you to do that, right? Whether it's family or coworkers or bosses will not want you to succeed in that way. That having a coach or somebody along there with you can bring you back to, oh, this is just part of the process, right? And you're at the stage, or shedding this is part of it. It's natural. You're going to lose some people to gain some others, right? That's part of it.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
One of the other topics you and I have bonded on is the topic of profit. Yeah. And we had spoken about the fact that I'm working on my certification for Profit First, and you're a bookkeeper. And I heard you mention that even when you were in corporate, it was all really about profit. So talk to me about what approach do you take to profit for women entrepreneurs?
Yeah. So actually, I wrote an interesting thing about this too. It was like how to plan during COVID. Yeah. For me, so I have spent a lot of years helping companies do financial planning or strategic thinking. And again, a lot of it comes down to, profit. How are we going to make more money? That's the end all be all. I personally, and this is what I do with my own business, and I will tell you that it is a daily thing. It is not a one-time thing. We do it on a piece of paper. It is being very intentional about the decisions you make and why you make them. So when somebody is thinking about starting a business, I like to start from the framework of what are you offering and who are you serving? So really thinking through, instead of, because we immediately go to, am I going to make money on this? Right. Or how can I sell myself? To maximize my profit, or what channels should I be selling in, and those types of things. So there is a place for that. Absolutely. 100%. But start with a conversation of, where is my passion? What do I really want to be doing? Who am I serving? And to come back to that every single time you're faced with a big decision. And we try to do that here. Somebody needs help. Well, is it a women-owned business or is it not? Does this fit in with what we're working towards? Can I help this person? Can I not help this person? Those types of things. And then setting targets for yourself up front for your company that are not financially driven. So like at Watch Her Grow, every year we choose a partner. A percent of our revenue goes to that partner that helps women. Can you put some metrics in place that are not financial in nature? Like one of my goals is, I want to get to the point where I can hire 3 interns over the summer to give, some women who might be not as well off as others the opportunity to work for a company and get some experience. And then longer term, who can I employ? Because if my business is successful, I can bring in other women who might be single moms or need a flexible arrangement or whatever, and I can help their lives drastically in that way. And so that can be a goal of my business, not necessarily making profit. So to me, there's a lot up front in the planning of your business. And those are the things that get me really excited of the things that I can do and that, bring meaning to my life. Then, of course, you have to have the profit conversation, because you can't stay in business if your, expenses are exceeding your revenues. Right. So you do have to put some thought into, are you going to make some money? And some of the things that I encourage people to do is when you're starting a business, or really any point in your business, is to do some type of longer term plan. You'd be surprised. A lot of small businesses haven't done any longer term planning, like even for the first year. And the reason why that's important is when you're starting up, as you know, can be a lot of expenses up front, and the revenue doesn't come until later. So there's a lot of documentation and people written about startups out there, and terms like the runway, right? You start out investing a lot and then you make a lot of money. And those are good frameworks, but just, even if your business is really small, thinking about, do I have to buy inventory up front? Can I avoid certain long-term commitments? Can I avoid a lease? Can I avoid hiring somebody until the point in time when my revenue comes in? Just thinking through those things and the timing and a timeline. So if you use a year, like for 12 months, when do I think my revenue is going to come in? When am I actually paying expenses? And do I have the cash flow to sustain that startup, or am I going to end up going out of business before I really even take off? So that's something that I always encourage people to do. If you're sitting on a lot of cash and that's less of a concern for you, obviously that's not as important, because there are people out there who have lots of money to play with.
Right.
But if you're trying to do it on your own, that's definitely something I would recommend. And the other thing is, you hear people talk about margins or break even. If you're selling a product, it is sort of important to look at, what's in the marketplace today and what other people are selling it for.
Mm-hmm.
Just to give an idea of, am I going to be a premium product to that? Am I going to be like the cheaper version of that? But thinking about what your price point might be, that's going to change probably, 5 to 7 times. That's okay. But
Sure.
Run some different scenarios. What if I sell it for $5? What if it only sells for $2? Those types of things. And then how much is it actually costing me to make? Because again, you would be surprised that some people are actually not making money because they haven't put down on a piece of paper what they actually can sell it for versus what it's costing them to make. Same thing with services. It's not a product, but like, if I'm billing myself out at a certain rate per hour, is that, number one, enough for me to live on? Is that enough for me to pay my expenses? Or if I'm paying an employee or I have subscriptions to software, just really looking at that on a piece of paper. And again, I'm really big into scenarios, like, just high, medium, low. Here's my best case. Because I sometimes feel like financial people are the anchors. And I don't like owning this persona, but in some ways I feel like it's a very important position. So for entrepreneurs, it's like, yes, have your best case, way out there. I'm going to do, I'm going to be the greatest influencer. I'm going to make all this money. I'm going to do all these great things, but then also have, this is my anchor. This is when everything doesn't go the way that I thought it was going to go, can I hold down my company and have that scenario? So that's where, maybe volume only comes through at 30% of what I thought. I get 2 clients instead of 5 in the first year. What does that look like for you? Just think it through. It doesn't have to be in Excel, but even on like just a piece of paper,
Right.
What those different scenarios are, and then weigh how comfortable you are with each of them, right? And how much risk you're willing to bear, if you need cash, where you might go if you need to get some cash, what you might do on the side. Like a lot of people who are starting out have side gigs. Can I temp somewhere? Am I contracting somewhere? I have something part-time that will bring in some cash while I try and start off. And I haven't mentioned the other scenario, which is definitely still out there. There are a lot of entrepreneurs who work with investors. They come up with a really big idea, and then they essentially go sell it to one of the large places that's giving funding.
Sure.
To get money to come in. So that obviously is an option too.
Yeah.
You just then have to weigh the cost of somebody else having a significant interest in your company, right? And
Right.
how much you want to give up. And then in terms of coming back to the profit conversation, if you want to make your company less about profit, keep it owned by yourself or your small few, as opposed to outside investors, because they will absolutely be expecting a return on their investment, and they'll be expecting it every single year. And it doesn't give you as much flexibility. Like in a year of COVID, there might be some companies that are like, wow, we took a loss this year, but hey, I don't have to tell anybody, right?
Right.
It's just, I'm the only one who has to know. I know that I'm going to be fine next year. Yeah, you can withstand short-term financial difficulties without a lot of, whatever problems with your investors who are not going to be very happy about that and expecting you to make short-term decisions about laying off people and things like that in order to make sure they still get their money. So that is just my opinion. It's not like the end all be all. There are plenty of people who've been very successful by bringing in outside investors, especially for a share of their company and making money. That way, it just depends on your goals.
Okay. Well,
right.
While you were describing that, I was thinking about the clients that I'm working with now, and these are often they're women entrepreneurs who are just running the show by themselves, kind of like you and I, right? We're running our own shops here. And when we start the conversation about finances, how are you keeping track of your business expenses, your business income? And I usually get some variants of, oh, I don't have any idea what to do. Like, it's the best that I can do. Or I just send everything to my accountant at the end of the year and hope that he can figure it out. So do you have any tips or tricks for what are some very basic bookkeeping kinds of systems that every woman entrepreneur should be starting with from day one?
Okay, so first of all, full disclosure, I'm a QuickBooks Online Pro advisor. So there are other things out there. QuickBooks is not the only thing. I like it from, I did pass the CPA years ago. So there are some accounting things that I do like about QuickBooks. It is set up for accountants. What I would suggest is early on in your business, I would just add it to one of the things you do when you get your tax ID, you get your legal name, is to get a subscription to some type of accounting software. And the reason why I suggest getting it up front is because it's relatively inexpensive. Like, I think QuickBooks, the lowest membership is $20 a month, going up to maybe 70 or more, depending on how many users you want and things like that. Because what I see happen, honestly, is what you sort of just mentioned, is that people start out, they don't do it. And then between 18 months and 2 years later, I get calls. I'm working with 2 women right now. Oh my God, my business is taking off and everything's messed up, right? Can you help? And so, so I can certainly come in and we clean up your QuickBooks, but number one, it's more expensive. So it's a lot harder to come back in 2 years after something's been set up and unwind it and go through all the transactions that have transpired and put them in the right place in order to get them started. Whereas if you set it up front and you're capturing all of your business expenses, it's there. QuickBooks can be intimidating for some non-financial people. You can use somebody to get you on it, right? Just get me set up, get my basic account set up. There are rules that you set up. It links to your bank accounts and your credit card. So all the transactions can come in automatically, and you can set up rules to help you post them to the right place. Then you're at a much better place than you guessing as a non-accounting person where something should go and putting it on the balance sheet when it should have been an expense. And mucking things up. So that's one. The second thing I would say is that at some point in your business, you're probably going to want to get a loan. So like we all just went through PPP, and one of the things that banks always ask for is, let me see your financials. So a tax person, yes, great. Once a year, you have to file your taxes. They know the ins and outs of that. But doing your taxes is not understanding the health of your business. And so to go to get a loan or to make any longer term decisions, they want to see your financials. And that's more than just your income statement. So your income statement is, just what I gained or lost during the year, right? I made money or I lost money. The balance sheet is, what is my company worth? So that's like, do I have accounts receivable? Do I have loans that I owe people? Maybe I have a vehicle that I purchased, or I have a building. Those are the types of things that somebody uses to assess the value of your company. So you have to have a balance sheet. A lot of the apps that are out there just track your expenses.
Right.
So a lot of people go, oh, I'm using this app. It's great. Yeah, I think that's great in the beginning, but it's not your balance sheet. It doesn't help you manage your business in terms of if people owe you money or you owe them money or how much cash I have. It's just saying what came in and out. So if you're picking software, choose something that has a balance sheet. Because when you go to get a loan or anything, an investor, they're going to want to look at that and see what is the health of your business. And again, it's really easier to set it up front than to come back later and try and set it up later. And then also usually when somebody wants it, they want it now, right? So there's a reason. Oh my gosh, I need financials. I'm trying to get this loan, and then it's like stressful because you're trying to go back and gather all that information. And sometimes, depending on if you're selling a product, like something small, there can be thousands of transactions, right?
Right.
Yeah. So did that answer your question?
Yeah, you really drove home the importance of having all of this set up in the beginning. Is there a basic structure for a setup? Like, so let's say I get Quicken or I get QuickBooks. And there's all kinds of options for accounts, right? At least in the QuickBooks that I have, like I could have chosen from 100 seem like different accounts.
It's really intimidating, isn't it?
It is. So is there any way to simplify that?
Well, first of all, something like QuickBooks does have some basic frameworks. And when you set up with them, they give you like a general accounts. Like they'll give you a cash account. If you set up as well, let me step back for a second. To choose between accrual-based accounting and cash-based accounting is another consideration. So most people, when they start out as a cash-based business because it's easier for tax purposes, it's easier for bookkeeping. So that means you're only taxed on actual money that came in the door, that somebody paid you. Even if somebody owes you money, you don't count that as revenue, even if you've done the work. But for an accrual basis, you're recognizing the revenue when the work is done, whether somebody has actually paid you or not. Like you may give them 60-day terms and they don't have to pay. So you have to make that designation, at least from a tax purpose. Am I accrual or am I cash? At a certain point, the IRS forces you to be an accrual. I'd have to go back and look. But basically, as you get bigger, they want you on accrual-based accounting. It's better for tracking your business because it gives you more meaningful information about how I'm operating. I know that I have this money coming in on an accrual basis where I don't from a cash basis. So that's set aside. You can still set up your books to operate on an accrual basis, even if you do your taxes on a cash basis, which is something that I personally do so that I can set up receivables and see when people owe me, even though for the IRS, I'm still doing cash basis. So you have to make that designation when you're choosing some sort of software, and some of them only allow you to do cash. So QuickBooks allows you to do both. Okay, it's probably more than you ever wanted to know. But it's important when you're when you're setting up accounts, because if you choose in something like QuickBooks to use the cash basis, you're not going to get the accounts receivable and accounts payable accounts that you would want to have if you were operating your business that way. So in terms of a framework, you can use the basic accounts. If you pick accrual, and I think like QuickBooks, you can give some information on them. If you use the desktop version, it allows you to pick, is it professional services, is it manufacturing, whatever. I think the online version does not. They just give you like a standard thing and let you pull in accounts. Honestly, I would probably suggest asking somebody who knows QuickBooks or finding an advisor to just help you set it up. Because again, it doesn't take that long to set up the account. It's just kind of, you can ask a client, what are you doing? Are you selling something? And they can set it up for you. If you want to do it on your own, a trick is always to go Google and search. Like I'm a software company. I sell software licenses. Google example P&L for software company and look at how they have it set up. And you'll see what accounts they use for revenue, what accounts they use for expenses, and how they order them. Because that's some of the other things is like sometimes a non-accounting person will put things in kind of an odd order. It's not that it's wrong. It's just not the typical way that people look at their financials. But There are plenty of examples out there. I'm a not-for-profit. Go Google not-for-profit, whatever. I'm a manufacturing company. Go look and you'll see that, they have revenue, less costs of goods sold, and that will help you identify what accounts to put in. But realistically, it's easy just to have somebody set it up for you is what I would say. You'll feel more confident, I think, in the nature that you got it set up correctly. Certainly if you're doing manufacturing, that's a more complex business. I would not set that up on your own. If you're doing just professional services and you have very limited expenses, which is like how I was when I started, you're billing customers for a service and you maybe have, office supplies, some other things like that. You can probably set it up on your own because you're only going to be picking a few accounts. And then when you decide to engage somebody longer term, at least you've captured all the transactions. They can move things around. It's the waiting 2 years to even get on a system that's much more complex than moving stuff around. Is that helpful? Hopefully that was
It is. It's
too much accounting.
It's one of those things, and I've learned there's a lot of things that is important for my business, but I don't want to have to learn how to do myself. Now, for me, profit is one of the things that I wanted to learn for myself, so that's what I'm doing. But for a lot of people, that's not what they want to learn how to do. So finding professionals like you who can help set that up, because I just have a strong belief that the more that we feel like we're in charge of our money with our businesses, the more we stand in that circle. right? More
My
solid.
gosh, yeah, absolutely. Yes, because there are entrepreneurs I found who are on QuickBooks, but they still don't have a good sense of their business because nobody's ever really talked through them on how to read the information that they're getting. So QuickBooks is great in that, yeah, I can run a balance sheet and I can run an income statement, but if I don't really know how to interpret that,
right,
it's pretty meaningless for me, especially in terms of what does that mean going forward. So it's that data that you're capturing that lets you see, historically, this is how I've done. And maybe you're a seasonal business, maybe certain months of the year I have no income, maybe others I have a lot. All that information is captured and you can use that to help plan and make decisions. Or, oh, by the way, I'm running out of cash. I don't have any receivables. But, having somebody help you interpret those things. What I often suggest for people who are starting out is that if you get it set up correctly, you can manage the day-to-day getting the transactions in there. And then sometimes people offer or have an accounting or bookkeeper then at month end come in and make sure, or quarter end, that their reconciliations make sense. So my bank account's reconciled, my credit cards are reconciled, I've captured all the activity correctly, and then maybe generate financials. And if there's something, to share with it, hey, it looks like you're going to run out of cash in 90 days, or hey, you've got a lot of cash, you should consider investing some of that somewhere, or, moving it out of your business or doing something like that. Those are options. So you don't have to pay to have an accounting person on staff.
Right.
Yeah, you can just hire somebody who's just doing little bits and pieces and checking in for you monthly or quarterly or annually, helping you get your books ready to give over to your tax person, so that you're not, because those people are expensive. Like tax people can be really expensive. So if they're billing you at several $100s an hour to clean up your books, it's advantageous to give them to them already cleaned.
Right.
And then they can just run your taxes.
Exactly. All right. Well, thank you so much for that. I would like to segue now into the last part of our conversation today, and that is about restoration. How we talked about it earlier in this conversation about how, we leave corporate. I left public education, burned out from that. You left corporate America. And now here in these roles too, stress is still here. It's not like we ditch stress at our former offices, right? So how do you make self-care, restoration part of your regular practice?
Yeah, so I think first of all, I would say is that it's still really challenging. And I've noticed that it's become more challenging with COVID in that now we're all working from home. And so the separation between workspace and home space has become much less clear. And as an entrepreneur, one of the things I love is the flexibility about when I work. So oftentimes my days are filled with talking with people, talking with clients. And then when I need 2 or 3 hours to put together a financial plan, I often do that in the evening when I'm uninterrupted. So that's great and it's flexible, but it also leads to never ending work. So it's definitely still a challenge for me. The things that I try to incorporate into my life for self-care. So number one for me is being outside. I do have a dog. I walk my dog twice a day intentionally because that's very clearing for me. On the weekends, I try to get out to a trail. It doesn't happen every weekend, but if I can spend an extended period of time outside, that I find to be necessary time in that you can get so bound up in the tasks that have to be done that there's no time for what I consider the feminine flow and the intuitive and the thinking that just sort of happens naturally when I'm outside and I'm relaxed and I'm with people and ideas just kind of pop into your head. And then something that felt so forced before then becomes much more natural. One of my goals is to try and incorporate more of that into my business, which is more of an integration of myself in that I feel like accounting is so logic, more masculine, and this other side of myself that I would love to be able to share more with my clients, combining those things. And I haven't really gotten to that point yet. But being outside, cooking is another big thing for me because it's creative. And then definitely yoga. So I did go through yoga teacher training, all types of yoga, even if it's just sitting for 5 minutes. I have found that I'm resistant to it when I need it most. So if I can just get out of this mindset that I'm so busy, I have so many things to do, I don't have time to take 10 minutes, to that is the exact moment when I need. I'm telling you though, it is the biggest battle in my brain. It's like, I know this, I know this, I know this, I can't. I know this, I know this. But sitting down for even just 10 minutes and closing your eyes and just being open to, experiencing the moment. Those are the things that I do to kind of, keep some sort of, I don't want to say balance because it's not a balance. It's an integration, right? The marriage between.
Exactly.
Do you want to share, Mary, what you do? I'd love to hear.
Yeah. So one of the things that I do almost completely consistently, because there are a few days I'm not, is that when I get up earlier in the morning and I give myself anywhere from 30, sometimes 90 minutes, depends how early I can get up, to get up. And what I do during that time, the first thing I do is I do some conscious breathing. So I set a timer. I'm working my way up to 5 minutes of just conscious breathing. And I really have noticed that the days that I do that, I am much more grounded during the day. And I also catch myself interrupted breathing, right? I'll catch myself holding my breath, or I'll catch myself breathing too rapidly. And so I'm just more tuned into that. And then I can make those changes during the day. And then I also that's when I do my reading, something that inspires me, something that amuses me. It's about me. So that's what I do on a regular basis. But it's not enough. I realized that just before, the week before Christmas, I felt everything come undone. It was like I held everything together all year, and now it's Christmas, and finally have a chance to step aside from the work. And I did not realize how much I was holding on to. So what I have done for 2021 is I have taken like the last Monday of every month. It's a Mary Monday, and Mary gets to do whatever Mary wants to do for herself on that day. So whatever I do, it has to be for me. And that's it. There's nothing else to do on those days. So my intention for that is to give myself more of that time away from my work. Because I love my work. I would do it from, 5 o'clock in the morning when I woke up to, 9 o'clock at night when I go to bed. But I know that that's not healthy, and I'm not as good for it. I don't show up for it when I'm not whole. And so I'm excited. The other thing that I have also done is I've already blocked out 4 weeks of vacation for next year. Because this year with COVID, we had our vacations planned, and then of course we couldn't travel, and I never took that time. I just, put it off. So that's one of the things that I'm looking forward to in 2021 is upping my self-care game too.
That sounds great. I got to put that on my calendar, doing the vacation thing. We're having a little priority setting, meeting next week. And I was like, yeah, that needs to be part of it. All that intentional things about, what am I doing? Who am I serving? Yeah. How am I also, making sure we all get a break?
Right. Yeah. The experience that I had the week before Christmas was it was a painful experience to go through. And it's one I don't want to have to repeat it. Right. There will be times, right, when things are really tough like that again, but I don't want it to be because I've run myself down. So
oftentimes it takes getting to that point to make us do something. I mean, that's just part of human nature, right? So you have to just.
I can keep going. I can keep going, and then I can't. So before we wrap up today, Julie, how can people find you?
Well, certainly. So my email is julie@watchhergrow.com. You can reach me there, or through the website, watchhergrow.com. There's a contact form there, some information on the services that we have. That's probably the best way during COVID. I would love to talk to anybody. It's, free for the first hour or whatever. I'm very interested in helping women. So I'm happy to answer questions if you have specifics about, QuickBooks and what version of QuickBooks I should get, and how to set it up. I do some financial planning, can help if you haven't done that yet, starting out your business, what that might look like for some scenarios. And then decision making. I think one thing that a lot of people forget is that financial decisions are big, and people often reach out to accounting people after they've made the decision when there's very little that somebody can do to help, right? So if you're contemplating something big, like, should I get into this lease? Can I really afford to hire this person? Or, much more complex things, related to manufacturing. I was actually a plant controller for years, so I do have a lot of detailed experience, just, running it by somebody, just like, hey, it doesn't have to be a big thing about putting something together, but just having a conversation. I'm happy to talk to anybody about what you're doing and hear about your business too. That's always super exciting.
Wonderful. Well, Julie, thank you again so much for your time and sharing your stories and your recommendations with us. I really appreciate you. Hi, this is Mary. Thank you so much for watching this episode. I hope that you are coming away from this experience feeling a little more inspired, maybe a little more informed, or maybe just a little more rested. Overall, I hope you're coming away feeling more empowered. If you do, please give a thumbs up for this episode, subscribe so that you will not miss any future episodes, but most importantly, please pass this link along to your friends and to your network. Let's pass this sense of empowerment along. Thank you so much for your support. I really do appreciate you.